Welcome to Take It from the Iron Woman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Iron Woman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Iron Woman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. Take it from the Iron Woman. We only have special guests. Today we go to Laura. She's an executive speech coach. I'm wondering what we can learn. Obviously, we have more than 350 episodes in various languages with people from around the world. But what does a speech coach do? Laura, introduce yourself. What can we learn from you?
My name is Laura Bre-ZEE, an executive speech coach. From my particular perspective, I work with high-level executives who are still struggling at that level to excel in their particular position. And I have found that through any transitional state or promotional state of your career, you do go through some speech anxiety, some speech delivery. You're really thinking hard about, am I making sense? You're going through that new stage of growth. And oftentimes our communication breaks down and we go into what I call fear, uncertainty, doubt, questioning how our delivery is coming across. That's my niche. My niche is in speaking fear, helping executives, professionals, even students in the promotional, transitional stages of their career to manage that speaking anxiety that comes along with that change.
You mentioned fear. So it seems like when we have to present something in front of an audience, we don't know. We're like, I don't know. Then we see presenters and they just have flawless presentation. I always ask my executives, ask them what their secret sauce is. What do you think is the secret sauce when we see somebody who's flawlessly presenting and at ease on the stage?
This is a fantastic question. Okay. In my 17 years of working in executive speech coaching, I've sort of come up with sort of a loose theory on kind of the percentage breakdown. Okay. We already know from the statistics that 75% of the population fears public speaking. But then that's going to leave a smaller percentage. There's a really top tier, probably smaller percentage of people who are just natural born speakers. You know, they just excel. Again, that's probably just a little bit of a percent. I think that there's a middle gap in there, which are the people who have to cultivate that confidence. Okay. They bump themselves out of the percentage of the speaking fear. They're not necessarily natural, but they probably do have some of those qualities of being a natural leader, a natural speaker, but there is a cultivation of that. And I find that that's who I end up working with, is that percentage of the population who knows that they are capable of getting themselves outside of their comfort zone and really making an impact with their speaking delivery styles.
What is it then? The body language or the tone of voice or the speech in itself? Because I know it's like that 55, 38, and 7%.
What is it? I am going to take it to the other side and say, I believe it's being able to know your audience. You're going to, again, cultivate your body language and your vocal delivery for the audience and for the situation. Anybody who has a strong situational awareness, let me give you an example. You would deliver a speech differently at 8 a.m. versus 6 p.m. Now, if you work a traditional schedule, right, and you're sleeping from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., for example, and then you get up, then people's brains in the morning are going to be different than they are at night. Again, you're going to create that experience differently, just simply based on the situation. In that situation, it's a different time. You're going to want to capitalize on the fact that people's brains are probably a little bit more tired. You're going to want to introduce different strategies at 6 p.m. versus at 8 a.m. Now, people who are just waking up, you're going to have to be a very dynamic speaker at 8 a.m. because really they probably don't want to be there listening to you at 8 a.m. anyway, unless you are outstanding, of course. That's just a quick example of how everything is going to be what I come from anyway. My background, my coaching philosophy is everything is very audience and situational specific.
What comes to my mind, sometimes I work in the evening and I talk to somebody in Australia and I'm tired versus they're like bubbly and talking. What about the students? Before we recorded, you said you gave a talk. What can we give the younger generation as, hey, what is the secret sauce?
That is so complicated because we're dealing with so many different factors in the quote unquote young person experience right now. As far as, yes, I did speak about a project that I recently did for college age students. Again, this really goes back to what my expertise is, which is the promotional phases, but it really is in the job search. And there's so much online. We are so bombarded with everything online and also with many different dynamics in our economy and talent and just technology in general, people are really losing faith, I'm finding. Faith in this process that they're going to find something solid. It's what I would impart, and I said this yesterday, it's perseverance and it's resilience. Going through these job interviews, for example, with the idea that I'm building my confidence to go and have fun at the next one. We know that it's going to take long. We know that job interviews right now are sometimes 6, 7, 8 times in succession. And people are so exhausted. And the natural response is to lose stamina. Why am I putting all this time and effort into this when I know I'm either not going to get a call back or nothing is going to come from this situation? But utilizing these opportunities as speaking engagements so that you can continue to hone your communication skills. Because ultimately we know in most job criteria in the listing, number 1 through 5, communication skills, excellent communication skills are going to be necessary for that particular job. And especially as we're getting more into an area where we're not communicating as much, the more that you hone your ability to navigate difficult discussions, for example, be authentic, but maintain professionalism, being able to balance the ebbs and flows of society as it is today, as well as being able to show up with professionalism in whatever professional environment that you're in. Somebody asked this question yesterday. How do we know when to use slang? How do we know how to balance the professionalism versus just the casual? That's a really interesting question because it kind of depends. I have done a lot of work with different startups, and in the startup community, there are some very definitely Gen Z age founders, if you will. And some of these environments are really casual. I said you can set yourself apart by being too casual or too formal in these situations. But at the end of the day, we have to settle on something. And I always defer to, when in doubt, if you are questioning if you should click into a casual style of speech, if you're questioning that, you need to default to professionalism until exactly that you can switch into a very authentic style of communicating. You need to maintain that professionalism until you can get to that level.
We get so many gold nuggets from you. Keep the professionalism. Sometimes people like to add some humor, and it's not a good thing. I think that's what we really need to take into consideration, like be professional. It's about the body language, but it's about speaking to the audience. And I also think that sometimes the startup community, they need to have various communications ready, because when you talk to an investor, the message is different than when they speak to you and I. They need to have various levels of engagement that they can just pull from their toolkit.
Yes, definitely. I always tell any entrepreneurs to have your really quick 20-second or less pitch, your 2-minute engagement, even a 5-minute. And then, of course, if you have a prepared speech. But there are certain industries where you really do have to have that in your pocket from 20 seconds or less all the way up to a 12-minute actual presentation. Of course, longer if you're asked for a longer speech and it goes for 18 to 25 minutes or even 2 hours. But less is more at this point in time. Our attention spans.
That's the other thing. You mentioned something really important. We communicate less with voice, text, email, or whatever, artificial intelligence. It's important. That's why I think real good speech is even more so important.
Yes, it is very interesting to be a speech coach and reading about what you can get online through Chat GPT and just the other platforms that are coming out. And everything that I've read, from posts on LinkedIn to actually doing my own research, has really continued to stay within the parameters. Yes, there is amazing information that you can get. You can create your slides, you can get speeches, you can get social media posts, you can get blog posts. All the content is there. However, you still have to finesse it from a human standpoint. As long as we're still communicating human to human, we need to speak the language of engagement with other humans, because a lot of people are saying, I get this information, it's great, but then I have to spend time, again, polishing it so that it can be relatable.
I'm always curious, how did you get into this? What was maybe a pivotal moment in your life that this is my calling?
Well, this is definitely a pivotal moment where I personally did not start speaking until I was 3, which is very late. I spoke with a pretty prominent speech impediment. I stuttered for the most part of my life, and I still do have moments, especially whenever I'm tired, where my speech is disrupted. But that's what got me into it. And I have a science background, and I specifically come from a science approach, which is understanding why the system breaks down under pressure. Because I knew that whenever I was growing up, I was speaking well in certain situations and not speaking well in others. Whenever I started doing executive speech coaching, people would say that. Why am I nervous to speak in some situations, and why can't I just speak beautifully and eloquently in others? Finding that stability, I've had to find that stability within myself to be able to speak consistently, moderating different aspects of my vocal delivery to ensure that my speech remains fluent on a mostly consistent basis. I've transferred that concept to helping people understand that you can achieve a consistent level of speaking confidence, because that swing from low confidence to high confidence, especially at these high levels, it's impossible to exist in that space with that type of a discrepancy between your confidence. You really need to find a consistent level of confidence and then continue to build from there. Again, going back to that example I used earlier about cultivating your next level, just advancing your speaking skills. But everybody's going to have essential weaknesses. And we really just want to raise the weaknesses to meet or get closer to where those situations are whenever we feel comfortable. And it does happen. There's just a lot of investigation and discovery, of course. There's a lot of therapy. I am a speech language pathologist by training. So, of course, one large aspect of my life is doing in-depth evaluations. And because a lot of people have very similar stories as myself, they might not have had a speech impediment per se, but childhood trauma, just a lot of degrading, just a lot of things that generally fall under the scope of just not feeling confident. Or maybe there was a person or a situation in their life that influenced them in a negative way, where they're continuously trying to overcome a deficit of some sort.
We know that one professor said, you're not good enough, and that can dampen your confidence for the rest of your life unless we meet you where you just up our confidence. I think in school it's important that we learn how to present, and maybe that we get pushed a little bit to present all the time, because when we then go into business, you need to present all the time, even if you don't want. Even if people say, I'm an introvert. Well, if you're in an extroverted organization, then you need to go with that culture of the organization.
Yes, for sure.
What do you do when you don't work?
Well, I have 2 sons, ages 11 and 14, so that keeps me very busy. And I am a perfect boy mom. Moved to Tennessee from Colorado. There's still even a lot of outdoorsy things to do in Tennessee, but we love the outdoors. My sons are very active. We're just a very active family. And so we have dogs, and they used to ask me whenever they were younger, whenever we would go to the grocery store. And of course, one would be in the part of the shopping cart that was close to the handle. And then the other one would actually be in the shopping cart. And they would always ask me, they'd say, why do you say hi to everybody that we pass? Some people say, well, that's a Southern thing, which it is. But there's another part of it is that I really do enjoy interacting with people. And it's not just hi, hi generally ends up turning into some sort of short dialogue. They've always seen me be verbally interactive with people out in the public. I have no problems doing that. And what's interesting is whenever we are around other family members or family friends who knew me as a child, and then they interact with my sons, they always say, I feel like I'm just talking with a person. It's amazing that they're this young, but yet they can just sit here and sit with the adults and have a conversation and participate regardless. This is a common response that I get about my kids. And this has actually been a response from quite an early age. They have that ease about them. It's not like I said to them, you have to talk to everybody that you run across. No, believe me, they've also noticed that there are certain times that I don't need to talk to certain people under certain situations. And they will say, Mom, when we walk across the parking lot, put your head down and say no. They are actually protective in that aspect as well. I'm just a very outgoing, friendly person. I actually describe myself as probably more on the introverted side. But I will say that whenever I am in an interaction, I do like to really connect with people through that verbal dialogue.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for all your gold nuggets that we have. I need to listen more carefully what you gave us, all the wisdom, but it's about setting the stage and be confident and probably also do it more often.
Thank you so much.
What are you taking away from this episode? Let us know in the comments. Take it from the Iron Woman. We have episodes every Monday with interesting people. We can learn a lot. We can grow with them. Take advantage. Reach out to the guests. And Take It from the Iron Woman is also the book, Global Business Coaching with Sports Parallels. Get it in your local bookstore or download it. Thank you for your support and see you next time. Bye-bye.